Inside the 18, I'm Michael Magid, live from Hollywood, California. With me, you know him as the czar of the virtual background, the one and only Pro GK Academy, Omar Zeenni. Omar, like I said, you outdid yourself on Google search this time.
No, again, we have a special guest. I'll let you introduce him before I mention to all the listeners what the background is.
So guys, 99 World Cup winner Saskia Webber will be joining us later on. Apparently, there's a college season that they have to deal with right now. I don't know. That's a thing I guess some people are doing. And speaking of colleges, we have somebody who recently made the jump, not just from the college ranks to the professional ranks, but all the way across the world to Europe, to England. We have Portsmouth goalkeeper Duncan Turnbull. Duncan, what's up, man?
Not much. Thanks for having me on.
Dude, we're excited about this, man. I mean, it's not every day that you get to meet somebody that literally, for those like who guys are not familiar with Duncan's story out there, Duncan, you literally grew up being a Portsmouth supporter, like your whole family are like Portsmouth supporters, and now you've ended up at Portsmouth. Like how did that whole journey happen?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like I knew anyone at the club or, got in like that. I was just, in England, bouncing around different teams on trials, and then ended up at Portsmouth and stayed here, I think 5 weeks on trial, and then eventually got a contract at the end of it. So it was just kind of chance the way it worked out. I mean, I moved all the way across the world, and I live 10 minutes away from my grandparents, which is, an unbelievable. I think I never thought it would happen. They never thought it would. So it's nice to have that little family connection.
I'm sure they're really excited about that whole thing because, I mean, obviously they probably didn't travel across the world to come see you at Notre Dame. Not because they didn't want to see you play at Notre Dame. It's just a lot more difficult and stuff like that. So
yeah, I think they made the trip twice. They got to see us play one spring game against the Mexico U19s. But other than that, yeah, they haven't really seen me play. And then, I mean, unfortunately, COVID kind of put a damper on them coming to see anything else. But like my granddad used to be a season ticket holder at Pompey, so I think he was almost as excited as I was when I signed.
By the way, for maybe some people out there who might be in the United States and don't understand kind of like that nickname and everything like that, like, do you know like what the history is of all that? Because like I was going on all the social media handles looking for Portsmouth, and I just kept saying like go Pompey, and I'm like, is this like some Sarah A club that I didn't know about? And
yeah, I honestly don't know. I probably should know where it comes from, but I don't know like the origins of it. But yeah, just everyone calls it Pompey. I think just Portsmouth as a city, people call it Pompey. And then yeah, we're just all the fans chant. They're all Pompey and everything. So that's our nickname. Like I said, I probably should know where it comes from, but they didn't cover that when I signed.
Duncan, I think we always talk about like sacrifice and how the young players sometimes have to sacrifice proms and growing up with their friends back home. Do you feel like you were able to kind of close that chapter of kind of youth and kind of your priorities as a youth player and just as a young kid, and now you're obviously across the pond now, you're doing your thing and with Portsmouth? Do you feel like now it's a new chapter of like adulthood, or do you still feel like you're still missing out on some of those like youthful events?
No, I think it's definitely a new chapter. I live by myself right now, and obviously, living by yourself in a different country is like kind of a big adult type step. So definitely takes some, growing up quickly and just kind of learning how things work and all that stuff. But I mean, I had 3.5 years at college, and, I'm still in touch with all my friends and everything. So no, it's definitely a big step in terms of like growing up and kind of being on your own, just figuring it out for yourself. But I'm loving it so far.
It was so funny because like recently I was just actually reading an article about 3 Americans that just went overseas right now, Scally, McKenzie, and Aronson, and one of them said like the biggest change for them was that they got to, I think it might have been Scally at Mönchengladbach, and he's like yeah, everybody here plays PlayStation and I've got an Xbox, so like I have to switch up my game console. Like that's his number one priority.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was a thing, but yeah, all my friends back home are Xbox and everyone here is PlayStation. So then with the new consoles coming out, I'm trying to figure out which one should I get, because I put with my friends here, my friends back home. It's a tough one.
You might
tough problem to have.
Dude, I mean, honestly, these are the problems that like all the young goalkeepers that are listening right now, like these are the things that they want to focus on. They're like, guys, if you ever get to the professional level and you go to Europe, you need to make sure that you buy both consoles so you can play with your friends in the US. and your new friends in Europe.
Yeah.
Omar had a similar situation where he was a lifelong Galaxy supporter, and then got that dream move to their U16 development academy team. So it's very similar to joining the first team of professional club.
No, it definitely was it was just a great moment. I mean, I think at the time too, the goalkeeper coach who I ended up, I tell stories about him all the time, but he came to one of our games put against the U.S. women's national team, and he sat down by the goal and watched the game, and then afterwards he introduced himself. And you're with your youth team for so long that you just kind of like, I don't want to leave my youth team. All my best friends know. And he was like, Omar, I mean, it's the LA Galaxy Academy. I'm pretty sure you're going to want to come, and just listen to any offers or whatever they tell you. And finally, we had this sit down conversation. I'm so happy I made that decision, because now I have the inside scoop of like the early days of the academy. Kids these days, man, when we're like third generation, we were first generation. The kids now like third, fourth generations moved, and they don't get to see. Like, we didn't have a locker room. They gave us preferred parking, but it wasn't on game day, so like that didn't really matter. And we played, we're training on turf fields, and then some games were on grass. So it was just like inconsistencies, but they were still figuring it out. But again, now that I grow up, it's such a like cool experience knowing that I kept driving into that same stadium that I go watch games at.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, and I think, the one thing is, as we kind of going into this topic right now, Duncan, while we're trying to wrap this up right here, is that when you said you were bouncing around, England, looking at teams, dude, you were like at Manchester United and things like that. Like, I don't know if I would call that bouncing around. I would call that like some pretty incredible experiences,
Yeah, I mean, obviously I grew up a Portsmouth fan because my family lives here, but the other team I was supported growing up was Man United. And kind of ironically, my parents, or my dad, when he lived in Scotland, they lived across the street from Sir Alex Ferguson in I forget, East Kilbride, when he was the manager of St. Mirren up there. So they were kind of like family friends with them almost, because they lived across the street. And then initially, Neil Thompson got me a trial at Manchester United. I was there for a week, and then they extended it for another week, and then ultimately at the end it just didn't quite work out. But one of the best experiences that I think I'll ever have in my life. Like, first day I go in and sit down on a bike just to warm up, and De Gea sits to my left and Pogba sits to my right on the other bikes, and I had them like, I was just sitting there, like, I didn't know what to say. They were friendly and nice, but I was like, 3 weeks ago I was taking my final exams at Notre Dame, and now I'm here. I'm not quite sure what's going on.
Damn.
Dude, the craziest thing about that whole thing is, like, they're probably just like, they're like, I'm assuming this guy, like De Gea's like, I'm assuming this guy's a goalkeeper. Like, how old is this guy exactly? Like, what country is this guy from? Like, am I gonna have to worry about it on the Spanish side? Like, who is this guy exactly right there? But then you probably started talking, and he's like, oh, okay, I'm good. That's clearly an American accent. I don't have to worry right there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I mean, amazing experience, and like the things you just pick up just watching, training at that level is unbelievable. So yeah, money can't buy that kind of experience. So yeah, I loved that.
And by the way, shout out to Big Cat Neil Thompson, for hooking you up with that opportunity and stuff like that. And my God, this guy's becoming a multi-hyphenate, player agent, gloves, camps, trainer, all these sorts of things.
Just does a bit of everything. Yeah, good guy to know. But yeah, he's been great for me. I started training. I was actually just talking to him a couple hours ago. First time I trained with him was when I was, I think, 14 maybe, and we trained in a racquetball court at Judson University, and then what was it, 9 years later we were at Manchester United together. So just kind of a great journey, and kind of humble beginnings up to the biggest club in the world. So yeah, he does a bit of everything now.
As kind of before we go into that topic now, because you just brought up something that, Omar, I really want to discuss with you right there, because, you as a social media influencer, you have a lot of a connection with a lot of different people, a lot of young goalkeepers out there, and a lot of them you've actually built personal relationships with throughout their journey. How important is that to have that type of a connection with your coaches, from a youth level who've seen you all the way up to the pro level?
Yeah, no, I think it's super important. And I think when you have someone who has seen you from, stage one up until you are now, they've probably told you all the things you didn't want to hear. I think in business, in life, in relationships, getting the person who's going to tell you with good intentions, the things that are your shortcomings that you need to work on, I think that's super, super valuable. And I think obviously as the person who's giving that advice, and then seeing how that person takes it. I think if you find somebody who you know you can trust, is someone who can be, taught, and is someone who can be, pushed to that next level. Oh, sorry, my brother just called me. 1 second. You can push that next level. I think you can trust that coach to know what your best interests are and where the best opportunities are. So I think it's very important to do that. But I think from the coach's perspective as well, like, we put time into people who want to be invested in. We want those kids who are going to love it just as much as us, or love it even more. And then it'll give us even more confidence to vouch for them.
Well, the one thing, Duncan, that, I've learned about you in regards to your entire journey and everything like that is that, I don't want to say, like, and this is not in a derogatory way or whatever, but, from speaking to some people out there, they've said that, it didn't come easily for you. You were kind of a project at the beginning, and you kind of had to, work your way up to the different levels and everything like that. It wasn't just given to you like some of these other guys out there. And I think that's one of the reasons why you're really good at recognizing things like dangerous spaces, because you really had to start learning how to read that game as kind of you grew into your body. I mean, for those out there who are watching or listening, who, can't tell because, you're casually, reclining back on the couch, but Duncan's 6'7". So, sometimes when you're a taller goalkeeper like that, like as a younger goalkeeper, it's a little bit more difficult, to kind of get the technical foundation because your body's still kind of growing into it. Right.
Yeah, definitely. I was, I think my freshman year of high school. So when I was 14, 15, I was about 6'4", and I had size 16 shoes. So I was just kind of, all my proportions were just kind of out of whack. Like, my arms were too long for my body, my feet were too big. I hadn't really grown into anything. So it did kind of take, like, Neil Thompson and some other coaches that I had to kind of send me that, all right now he's big, lanky, and awkward, but, like, if you can kind of nurture that and like you said, learn the more tactical sides of the game, the kind of things that are in your control, and just kind of wait to grow into your body. They kind of saw that in me early, and yeah, I can't thank them enough for that. And it kind of took work on their end, on my end, and obviously it's worked out now, and still trying to iron some of those things out.
But I mean, it's coming along, man. I mean, and like we're talking about right now, we want to talk about dangerous spaces. And this is the reason I wanted to bring that up with you, is because I was watching just some wide service, against you, especially in college and everything like that. And you have a really good understanding of where that dangerous space is. Now, for maybe some of the parents out there who are listening, who don't understand kind of the goalkeeper, vernacular that we're using here, like, what do you think of as in dangerous spaces?
Yeah, I mean, first thing that comes to mind for me is just a dangerous space is anywhere a goal can be scored. Because at the end of the day, your job is to keep the ball to the net. So the most dangerous thing that can happen is, a shot or a chance from a good space. So, yeah, my head, just a dangerous space is anywhere where they currently can score, or in the next maybe phase of play they can have a chance to score. So that's kind of what I think of.
Omar, like, is this something that, like, you've noticed? Because I don't know about you, but personally, I've noticed that a lot of young goalkeepers, they're so excited about wanting to go to the ball that they're not really focused on where these dangerous spaces are. And I mean, you've been a big proponent, obviously, about manipulating your positioning, manipulating your movement, so it forces players to basically predict where they're going to move because of what the options that you're giving them.
Yeah, and there's actually a post that Lee from the Modern Day GK, he posted it, and it was like a poll. Do you like to sweep up and play sweeper keeper, or do you like to let that ball come over and hold your line because you're better at 1v1s? And my comment pretty much was, I love to sweep, but it wasn't just, okay, well, the ball got played over the top and then I reacted to it. It was more, okay, well, let's watch the film. Let's see where they like to expose space. When the center back or the center midfielder gets that ball, do his strikers, do they make diagonal runs across and behind and probably splitting the center backs? Or do they make, straight lines towards me? And I think once I started realizing, okay, well, if I like to make diagonal balls or diagonal runs, and I'm not that good at diagonal 1v1s or, coming across my body, maybe I show them that I'm going to take away that so they can try play a more difficult ball that's more direct, and I have more of a direct line to it. So when you obviously go through scouting reports, you see what they're trying to expose. And then at the same time, for us goalkeepers, it's like, okay, this is the space you're trying to expose. I don't want you to expose that. So I'm going to show you that it's closed, forcing something different. Or I'm going to show you that it's open, but then I'm also going to be ready to pounce on it. So it's understanding your I guess, shortcomings, but also at the same time manipulating it so that those shortcomings aren't exposed, and those spaces you're able to actually close them down because to that defender, to that striker, it looks open.
Yeah, and I think one of the things about that I love, by the way, Omar, how humble you were in regards to like understanding kind of your, and I don't want to say limitations or everything like that, but the areas where you don't feel as comfortable and everything like that, and Duncan, obviously. Well, I mean, I think that is a maturation process that, like, Duncan, you've probably noticed that, coming up from the youth game to the college game to the pro game, you started going like, oh my gosh, I have to recognize kind of these faults where like there's certain dangerous spaces that I'm not great at. So I need to start manipulating it so that to disallow those spaces to be open.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, there's so many things that come into that. Like if someone's serving a ball in, it's, their body shape, how far away is the ball from them, which foot, all those different things. And then you can adjust your position. And I mean, if you get your position in certain situations, if you get your position right, then they won't even serve a ball in. And then you've almost taken away the dangerous space just by being in the right spot. You've just cut out the chance of them even putting the ball in, those are the kind of things you don't really see on a highlight tape, or you don't really see, on ESPN or all those things, but those are just as important as a save, where if you're in the right spot and they don't put that ball in, that takes away the chance entirely.
Dude, and I think that's one of the great things about, by the way, I mean, you've got like that octopus build. I mean, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that like in a positive way. I wish I had that. I'm built more like a chipmunk. So it's a different strength that I have. But because of that, because of your range from a limb standpoint or whatever. Oh, hold on a second. We're being joined by a special guest before I start talking about your fantastic limbs here. Is the one and only Saskia Webber there?
Hi. Hi, Duncan. Sorry for my delay.
Hi, no worries.
We were
I was at the vet again. So.
Oh no, everything okay?
No, everything's fine.
Okay.
Allergy shots. Just ran low.
Oh, that's all good. All right, I thought it was something important with that. Go ahead, Omar.
No, I kind of wanted to add on to that point. I think, I'm sure, like we talked about earlier, Saskia missed this, but Duncan was saying his first days at Man United on his trial, he had De Gea on one side of him and then Pogba on the other side of him. So I think even I talked about in the last episode, Mike, about how in summer training in college, I had a lot of guys who were in the same conference as me. They came home, we were playing on the same summer teams, and being able to pick little things off of these goalkeepers, their set shape. I had a taller goalkeeper like Duncan size who I was training with, and I saw how effective he was with his foot saves. So then I, picked his brain and I said, hey, so tell me, what is it about you using your feet? Why are you so comfortable with that? He's like, well, I'm so tall. I realize I waste time by going to the ground. So this is why I do it. And I was like, okay, so what kind of a base do you have? Do you start wide? Do you start narrow? What is it? It's like, I start wide so I can sit into that space so I'm lower to the ground so I can, get my feet out and really direct the touches. So then again, I'm not 6'7", but I'm understanding the reason and the dissection of why this goalkeeper, what their thought process is. I start wide so I can sit. Why do they do what they do? And then it gives you, again, the awareness now of, okay, well, that probably is not a strength of mine, but how can I make it a strength of mine? And how can I try and filter what he told me to use it to my advantage and my body type? So it's super important. And Duncan, I'll ask you, do you feel like the goalkeepers that you've been exposed to, who maybe a little bit shorter, maybe at your size, have you picked anything specific off of those guys that maybe kind of helps you take away the dangerous space or even like prevent certain situations from happening?
Yeah, I mean, a big one when I was at Man United, De Gea was watching him a small set of games. He played a little bit deeper because, I mean, he's big. He's probably like 6'2", 6'3". So, I mean, he's not small, but he's a little smaller than me. He would kind of, when the ball was coming in, be a little deeper to his line because he's so quick that his reactions would make him a lot more saves than they would in my situation. And then at the same time, Sergio Romero was there, and he's probably 6'5", 6'6". He's a little closer to my height, and he would play another step or two higher and just use his size to make more of a block kind of save rather than a reaction. And kind of watching that and seeing the two sides of it there, I was able to kind of think, I'm a bit more like Romero, where I'm not as quick, but I do have the size. So, just kind of playing that little extra yard off my line gets me better angles, and I'm able to get myself in front of things.
Yeah. I think just to add on to that, Mike, you guys, I think Mike, we forget what we had on here, but it was one of those coaches that maybe it was, forget his name, but I was telling him about my situation as how I coach and, my thought process on certain things. And I said, well, I also saw another coach do the exact, very similar thing, but he refined it. And, this is how he communicated it. And that coach told me, he's like, yes, but don't take everything they say for like legitimacy. You have to understand those coaches went through a process of filtering what they liked and what I guess was a agreement to their philosophies and their methodologies, and then took away what they didn't like. So I think even when you're talking about how in these situations, a lot of these players, they came to that conclusion of what's best for them over time. So when you see somebody, like you said, Romero and De Gea have contrasting styles, now you talk about, okay, well, why do they do that? Then you start really dissecting it. Then for you now, it's all that information. I think we talk about it a lot. Unfortunately, a lot of these young goalkeepers, they watch De Gea on the weekend, they see these foot saves, and then they start defaulting and resorting to that. And it's like, no, educate yourself as to why. And then now sit down with a notepad and say, why would I be successful at it? Then go to the field, then try it, then trial and error. And then eventually you find something that works for you. But I think it's a lot of people rush to it too quickly to find the solutions when they haven't even really dissected what the problem was to start.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, whether it's coaches, players, fans, I mean, just the more people you can watch, the more people you can work with. It's like all those ideas you get, and like you said, you just find the one that works best for you. And it's kind of, there's not really a right answer for everyone. It's just kind of find the right thing. Like as much as it would have been nice to just go to one pro team and just sign right away. I mean, I went to 4 different ones in England, and then I'd trained with some other ones in the past. And you have so many coaches and so many other goalies you see that if you can just pick up 1 or 2 things off everyone and just find the best one, it's almost better to have all that exposure and see as many people as possible, and then kind of work it into your own game.
Yeah, I mean, and for a lot of people out there, I love what you were saying there, Duncan, in regards to that, because like, sometimes even when like you were saying, like you were training with De Gea and you were watching certain tendencies or whatever, you would see things like that and being like, okay, maybe this will work for me in this situation. Maybe this won't work for me in this situation. And Saskia, I know that's something that you've been really big on, getting back to dangerous spaces is, goalkeepers have to understand what their abilities are, because the dangerous space is going to be determined based on their abilities. Maybe Duncan's dangerous space is a little bit lower than my dangerous space is because, he's got, the octopus arms like I was talking about before, and I'm a chipmunk, so I'm close to the ground. So that's not as dangerous a space for me.
Yeah. I mean, like, just to reiterate what Omar said, you have a lot of young goalkeepers out there and they look up to, players, Duncan, De Gea and stuff like that. And they just try to mimic things they see without understanding why that goalkeeper is doing it, why that benefits that individual goalkeeper. They have to find what works for them. And it's not going to be exactly the same. You have to understand, when, especially with me working with, I have goalkeepers in the range from like 5'5" to 6 feet. So, they can't handle a situation the same, whether it's a cross, whether it's the distance off their line, whether it's through balls, their starting position, everything has to be tweaked per your strengths and weaknesses. It's just not cut and dry.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Omar.
No, and I kind of want to bring up Brianna. She was on the podcast almost a year ago, Mike, probably longer than that. And I think there was a conversation we had with her, and she said I talked about it on the podcast as well. She said that there were times where in training on crosses, I told myself I was going to come for everything. And even if it was a bad decision, today's the day I'm just going to come for everything. And she said, I did that only so I could see what my range was.
Absolutely.
And again, it's people who are very impressionable and young kids or somebody who came to the session and watched that, they would watch it and go, oh my God,
what is she doing?
I have to be that aggressive. I need to do this. I need to do that. And I think that's also too, one thing where I've kind of like slowed down on, I'm not criticizing, but like, mentioning certain things about coaches when I watch their sessions. I'm like, I don't know the full picture. I don't know the full story. Unless I was there while they were creating the session, I don't know specifically what their target was, what their goal was. So I think it's also super important as well, where Duncan, I'll turn it back to you and maybe Saskia as well. Like, how important is it for you guys to understand and like just pick the brains of the mentors or the players that you're working with and you've played with, just to see what's going on in their head? maybe they have a specific goal that day that you have no idea about, like Brianna was doing. And then now you're understanding, oh, okay, well, there's a reason she's coming out for those balls. Phew, okay. I thought I had to be more aggressive and I had to, like, to change my style up completely. But like, how important has that been for you, Duncan, like over the time that you've been playing, just kind of understanding why your teammates do what they do?
Yeah, I mean, it's crucial, because I mean, you're with your group of goalies so much right now. I mean, obviously most clubs are the same. You just train with the goalies for about 45 minutes at the start, then go into the team. So that's a great time, like you said, to try things out. You see something that someone else does and you think, oh, that might work for me. And then you try it in training and you think, absolutely not. That doesn't fit me at all. So yeah, it's just drawing on the experiences of everyone else. Like my goalie coach now, John Keeley, played in the Premier League, and he played, I think it was called something else back then, but he played for Brighton, he played for all these different teams, and he has so much experience that you ask him why there's certain things you think, like, why does he do that? And then you ask him and then you try it out and it works. And he's picked that up through trial and error. He didn't just wake up one day and just think, like, you know what, I'm going to do this now. He did things, tried it. Some things worked, some things didn't. And then, like I said, if you can pick that off of everyone you work with, then, you just kind of have a great mixture of ideas that you can try to fit into your game.
Yeah, I mean, I think like with Brian and stuff like that, especially like Tony always wanted us to try to push and extend our range in training, get out of our comfort zone. And then, like I've always said, you find your mean, you find where you can be. But, I have goalkeepers, you see goalkeepers today, you can do it in training and then they get so nervous or something like that. And they go back to their bad habits. And I understand that that's where you're comfortable, but we've got to find a middle ground here, and that's why in training, I have one goalkeeper that she hugs her line. And when we get, when we're in training, when it's goalkeepers, she'll push herself, but that's not translating. And then when she gets into a small sided entry scrimmage, she goes back to hugging her line. And I'm like, we've got to break this. We've got to find, I don't want you can't play like Lauren plays, like you're not the same size of her. You don't have this certain strength, but we've got to get you out of this and find your middle ground here. And that was always communicated with us, like training with national team, with Tony, with everybody was, okay, push it. Let's see, what zone you can get to when there's a slotted ball coming from the end line. Like, I know you're on your near post, but can you like deflect this ball that's getting slotted across to like the 12? Sorry, I don't know what's going on.
No, that's okay. It's almost like you're living your life and there's
like
actual life going around.
Yeah. But we were pushed to find those ranges. We would make mistakes. Yeah, you'd come out and it was dumb to come out for. But unless you do that, like you're never gonna kind of grow.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to put the whole picture together right now, and actually want to go. We're going to go back in time, Duncan. We're going to go back to college time, ACC championships. Speaking of Clemson, Omar, look what we got right here. We got Clemson, Notre Dame. Don't look at the rankings. Don't look at the rankings in any way. So
yeah, they're wrong anyways.
Yeah. Those rankings are always off. But basically what I wanted to show right here, and Omar, I'll let you do the play-by-play after I play the clip right here because you're so darn good at it.
Okay.
But essentially what we're going to see right here is we're going to see some wide service, and we're going to see Duncan recognize the dangerous space and move into the dangerous space rather than like what I was talking about before about reacting to the ball. You're moving into the dangerous space and calling off the ball before it has a chance for anything to happen. So it's the wide service, you move into the dangerous space, and then it's an easy, simple pickup when you're 6'9" or whatever it is that you are right there. No, but you guys get what the thing I'm saying. So Omar, you want to walk everybody who's listening to this back again?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, so the ball starts like on the right side of the field, probably like 10 yards off the 18. Center attacker from Clemson plays the ball wide. Duncan tracks the ball to the near post, and it looks like the ball kind of gets deflected once it's served. So I think it kind of causes your route to change a little bit mid-flight. So you take care of the near post, and that ball kind of lofts a little bit towards the center of the goal, and you come and collect it. Wasn't crazy traffic, but still, there was still enough there for you to have some trouble with it. Yeah.
And by the way, if anybody's watching this right here, young goalkeepers and stuff like that, you're like, oh, this is a really mundane play right here. Why are you showing this? This is like, because again, we talked about it with with Charlie Lyon, who just recently retired from MLS. It's like, do you want to be an Instagram goalkeeper, or do you want to be a professional goalkeeper? And these are the types of plays young goalkeepers out there that you need to see, because this is what gets Duncan to the pro level, to playing in England, is being clean like this. So why don't you kind of walk us through, Duncan, what you're seeing right here?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, when that ball gets played out wide, you have to adjust, towards the front post. I think, just being overly critical, I probably went a step too close to my front post, just because he's right-footed and he's pretty clearly shaping up for a cross there. So I probably should have been a step further back. But yeah, once he serves it in, you just make that early decision that you can come and get it. And then, just get it at its earliest point that I could. Luckily, like you said, there wasn't too much traffic in there, but you still had to beat that guy that was coming in behind me. And just got the ball as early as possible and looked to start a counterattack.
I want young goalkeepers to see that, though, is that the thing that I love about this play, and again, it is a simple movement, but it's the fact that you recognize the dangerous space, you moved into that space, you delayed your movement so that you weren't going direct, because I think, Saskia, I think that's the problem that a lot of young goalkeepers have, is they move direct at the ball rather than recognizing where's the goal scoring opportunity.
Well, yeah, I mean, like Duncan said, he assessed the fact, is the dangerous is the near post. Like, goalkeepers take that too literally. Like, oh, okay, he's coming down to this angle, I have to watch my near post. You have pressure on the ball. He's shaping up to cross, and even if it's directed, and Duncan, I agree, I think if he were a step back more, but it doesn't, you still covered it. But for young goalkeepers out there, like, can you cover 2 yards? Can you cover 2 yards or a yard, like, to the near post, instead of taking the rest of the entire field away from yourself? I always say it's easier to go forward than it is to go backwards, and so I think that, again, we get to that point where goalkeepers are too literal. And how I feel about some goalkeepers out there that love hugging their near post and everything, are still worried about it. But what does that do? Like, again, we get back to young goalkeepers out there, like, don't mimic people, understand why, like, what's going on. Like, Duncan had the perfect answer. He's obviously shaping up for a cross. There's pressure on the ball. You have the near post covered. So you can't, like, and I'm not telling any goalkeeper out there to cheat, in a sense, like, to leave early, because what if it was deflected? But kind of have it in your mind, like, this is going to be a cross. I'm ready. You're anticipating.
Play the percentages at a certain point.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, guys, one thing that I went to go watch Chris Sharp's session, and he kept saying no wasted movements, and I think that was such a good trigger word for me to understand that a lot of times, like Saskia was saying, a lot of these kids are very literal and impressionable, and they want to get to the ball because that's what they think coaches want to see, versus letting the play develop and then reacting to what happens. Obviously, you play the percentages, and you have, we talked about in the last podcast, guys, being a pessimist, understanding where the potential areas for the ball to land are, and then being pessimistic enough to go, okay, well, if it lands here, what is my solution? If it lands there, what is my solution? And again, that's why Buffon is the greatest, or one of the greatest ever, because he's played for 20 plus years, and he's gone through those same scenarios over and over and over. And you could tell here with Duncan, I'm not saying you're on Buffon's level, but what I do see is that
don't slight Duncan like that.
No, but what I did like about that is you came to that near post. You didn't, maybe, you came a little too far to the near post, sure. But again, you're tall enough where you're long enough to reach that far post, and shorter goalkeeper like myself, I'd probably have to cheat a little bit more so I can percentages near and far. But what I liked about it, though, is that you got to your spot, you respected that near post. It took a deflection. You didn't start running forward and then have to go backward. You held for 1 second. You didn't have any wasted movements, and then you were able to track it because you took a straight path to it versus stepping forward and then going around.
Yeah.
So I think that's incredibly important as well, is discipline to see it and then react. But don't get caught out. Do not get caught by surprise. It's not like you see it and then you're reacting to it. It's more of like, okay, I saw what happened. I'm going to let it develop, but my feet aren't stepping in places where going to cause me to be delayed.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, Omar, because you get a lot of players, period, that you know, that split second hiccup, that step forward, or that nudge to the near post, that's you're done. Like, so had Duncan kind of leaned or said, oh, I think he's going near post, he probably wouldn't have gotten to that ball.
He's scrambling across.
Yeah. So no, Tony was always, you know, assess, leave late, arrive early, you know. So it was like, assess the situation and then use your ability, your quality footwork, your explosiveness to recover from actually assessing the situation. So that split second assessment, now you have to make up for it, but quality footwork and getting yourself to the ball.
Yeah. You know, it's funny what you're saying in regards to the assessment aspect of it, because Duncan, something I wanted to bring up with you is that I feel a lot of times, and I can use myself as an example too, as a goalkeeper, you know, coming up, and obviously, you know, you're still playing and everything like that, but how often during the process you misassess where the dangerous area is. And then through trial and error, you start recognizing through tendencies either of players in the game or through scouting reports, you know, as the season goes on, where the actual dangerous areas are.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, growing up, no matter what age, what level, you definitely miss a few balls coming through, or you, like they were saying, maybe think it's going front post and then it goes back, and then you think back and kind of analyze it and think, you know what, you can see, I could have seen earlier that it was going to a different spot. And, but I mean, everyone makes mistakes like that. And it's just, can you learn from them and can you figure out what went wrong and then fix it? And that's kind of the difference between, you know, the people that make it and the people that don't. It's just, can you learn from those mistakes? Because whether it's training or a game, everyone's going to mess up those things sometimes. You just got to analyze them.
And I think, to add on to that, I think one thing that I used to love to do, I don't do it as much anymore because my left foot is a lot stronger than it used to be and I have more confidence with it. But there were times when that
Here we go.
No, there was times that ball would get played over the top, and I already knew that my left back is going to need somewhere to go with the ball. So instead of me just being reactive and kind of just like relaxing, I would sprint my butt, because I've had it so many times where I played that left foot straight out of bounds. And now in the United States, guys, we get Stoke City every week. We get a guy who has a long throw and whose parents put him on the team. The parents pay all the bills. They put this guy on the team. He can throw the ball in. After he gets that ball effectively into the box, they sub him out. So there were times where, like, if you put a goal kick, or a throw in a dangerous position, you're not going to be a favorite of your defender. So the balls would come over the top, and I would say, I need to bust my butt to get to that end line so that I can have my shoulders open enough where my right foot is still an option. And if you watch Ederson play on the weekend, guys, people always say he doesn't have a right foot. But if you manipulate the game enough and you are proactive and you know how your positioning should be, do you necessarily need that right foot? Or is that left foot good enough because you position yourself in a very favorable position that you can get away with it? So that's what I would say is, again, like, there are shortcomings, and I'm not saying don't work on your game, but there are also opportunities for you to understand what you're good at and how to manipulate the game and manipulate your positioning. And again, it comes by getting to your spot early. I think that's another thing we talk about as well when it comes to this, Mike, is like, what is your starting spot when you're reacting to what's happening? And I think that is, before you move, before anything, is like trial and error. Where are you starting prior to that ball being played? And if you're starting in a good position and you know yourself very, very well, you know your speed, you know your strength, all that stuff, you're going to be able to cut out that ball a lot better than somebody who doesn't know where they're supposed to start. And now they're playing catch up and that ball is already getting past it, but the striker's touching it by them. So rambled there, but I think that's my point, is understand what you need to do, get to your spots early, and then from there you can analyze what's in front of you.
By the way, go ahead, Duncan. No, go ahead, Duncan.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, if you're in the right spots, and I mean, it doesn't sound like much, but if you give yourself maybe 3 yards to get to a ball instead of 4 yards to get to a ball, just making that little adjustment, that makes, with how tight everything is and how quickly the balls can move, that makes all the difference in the world. So, yeah, like he's saying, those little adjustments you make and being in the right spot is, night and day when you're talking about cutting out a chance.
By the way, there's breaking news right here, guys. But before we move on right here, Big Cat Neil Thompson says, Duncan, Omar deserves a ticket or two with that backdrop. So we're expecting the Portsmouth tickets to be sent in the mail.
Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome at Fratton Park anytime. That was, great touch.
I'm going to bring the graphic designer along with me too. The guy who created it.
I want to bring up this next clip right here after we
all about Clemson.
It's all Clemson. Okay,
Clemson,
so
Notre Dame.
So here's another clip right here. I want to show kind of the example right here, because now we're showing the opposite. Now we're showing recognizing the dangerous space is such that you can't win the ball, so you have to retreat to line. And I think this is something really important for young goalkeepers to see. Again, right here. So, but the service is a little bit different, obviously, this time. So as you can see, and Duncan, why don't you kind of break everybody kind of down through this play? Let's watch it all the way through here. Boom. Oh, look at that save.
Jesus.
Brilliant. I wish I could do that. Definitely can't do that.
The octopus arms helped on that one.
Yeah.
But it's also it's recognizing that, okay, this is what we talk about finding your range, and every situation is going to be different. So, you know,
Wait, Sas, give us the play-by-play, please. Color commentary. You need to tell us exactly.
But more the thing is you holding your line, dropping step, getting into position for the shot on goal or for the header. A lot of young goalkeepers will try to say, oh, maybe I should have come for that, and come late, or get caught up in the fact they didn't come, but not do what they need to do next. And I always say, don't like follow one mistake by a second mistake. So, like, let's say you think you could have come for that, hypothetically. Don't get caught up in like, no man's land, and I should have come, and now I kind of look like I was going to come. Instead, you said, okay, I'm not coming for the ball. I'm going to drop. I'm going to get in position. Now I'm going to deal with the header. And so that's quality. But a lot of goalkeepers out there will try to you'll see a lot of goalkeepers go late. Oh, maybe I should have come for this, and just make the effort, make it look like they made a chance, and they get beat and stuff like that. No, if you don't, then do the next step. The next step is to drop, get in position, and be ready for the shot.
Yeah. I've always been a big proponent of just once you make a decision, there's obviously times when you make the wrong decision, you still have time to recover. But once you make a decision, I don't think I.
No, I'm not saying you could have come for
I'm
it.
not saying that, but once you make that decision that you drop back, it's like, even if at that moment you think, oh, I maybe should have come for that, like you said, you don't want to compound mistakes and then make another one. It's just get back, get set, make the save, and then you're better off being set maybe in the wrong spot than just running around trying to get something on the ball when you know you're in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And one thing I do want to add, guys, again, the people who are listening, it's going to be difficult to describe this one, but it was almost, I don't know if it's a free kick or what happened here, but the ball got played wide. There's two guys, one guy overlapping. Yeah, one guy overlapping, and there's a right-footed service in. So if you look at this, Mike, stop right here.
Okay.
If you look at it here, again, that last play we talked about coming towards the near post. If Duncan, we talk about inches, if you would have cheated and said, okay, he's probably going to play it wide, you would have already been splitting the difference between where you are now and the near post. People could say, hey, it's a high IQ play or wasted movement. It depends how, for anybody, how you see the game. For me, it would just be here. It's a high IQ decision. You did a really, really good job of, okay, play that ball wide. Then I will react and shift my position.
Exactly.
So you didn't budge. You didn't move at all. And again, it's those inches. So that ball gets served in. And now if you look at it, there's not much. You haven't really moved that much. Now you're just shaping your shoulders away from the service now to the center of the goal. So now your extremities, everything is under one balance, under its core. So instead of you scrambling across goal and then having to make a save back across you, now it's literally just, okay, pivot, see what's in front of me. And then from there, because I'm in a set and stable position, boom, I can get my arm up. And I think that's one thing that I try to emphasize with any goalkeeper that I work with is like, once you have an idea as to where that ball is going to fall on cross services, you got to bust your butt as quickly as you can to get to where your desirable position is, but don't go so fast where you're sacrificing your set position or slowing your body down in time. Like Franz Hoek said, Franz Hoek says, there's not always an opportunity to get set, but can you come across the goal and stabilize so that anything back across your body, like Duncan does here, gets his left limb and gets his arm up and he tips it over the bar. Any normal human being size, probably not, I probably wouldn't have gotten there. But for you use what you knew about your body and your reaction time and your reach. And I think that's super important that you didn't have any wasted movements. You played the game right, high IQ decision, and then an inch away from being a goal.
But again,
it's like I was saying.
Oh, sorry, Duncan, go ahead.
No, it's like I was saying earlier, where if I just taken that extra step to my left towards the front post, kind of anticipating that ball we played wide, then I would have had to adjust back that yard, and then maybe I'm not set as well as I was, and then you don't get there. So it's just sometimes not moving is the best movement you can make because you're just in the right spot to begin with.
Yeah, and again, if you look at that clip, the distance that the pass would have taken to go to the overlapping run, you can make that adjustment. Like there's no reason to already be going to your near post before that pass is made, like you said, because then maybe you're out of position. So that's at least 10, 15 yards. If you can't readjust quickly enough, if that pass goes to the overlapping run, then we have a problem. Like, don't already put yourself there.
And I think, guys, one last thing, and I think we talk about it as well with Phil Wedden. I had him on the podcast, and he was saying, when you watch games, look at the final action that you're trying to reproduce for the goalkeeper and simulate, but then look at the moments prior to that final action. So there are certain times where we hit stationary balls, and then we tell the goalkeeper, hey, we're going to play it down the line here, and then that's going to be an option as well. Versus dribbling, you could either shoot it, you can slip someone in for a 1v1, you can play it wide. So now, instead of them seeing a final action and then being in a stationary starting spot, they're having to recover and they're playing the live ball. So I think it's super important for us goalkeeper coaches is to, see the situation, see how it was presented in the game, and probably at your best, give them as many game-like potential outcomes here so they can really, really solidify the positioning. In training too, you could probably say, hey, today, I want you to try and take a chance on these cutbacks. I want you to cheat a little bit higher. So when that ball gets cut back, I want you to be in advanced position. So again, it's just having those conversations too of like, what liberties are you allowing your goalkeepers to work on? And like you talk about your goalkeeper at UCLA, Sauce, she might be sitting too deep. So you might want to put in a situation where like a 1v1, you can slip it. The ball's being played around the 18. You slip it. But what I'm saying, but that's what I'm saying though, is that like there's multiple opportunities for them to decide.
But also what I'm going to agree with you is instead of being so stagnant in training to the coaches out there and stuff like that, like today I manipulated the situation in our warm up that was leading into through balls and slotted balls to help work on distance off the line. But it was actually backtracking. It was like, when does this scenario happen? It's not just here, stand in the goal, run to your near post, catch a ball at the near post or work on the slotted ball. It's how does this develop usually? And usually this develops as this ball going over the top, the person driving to the end line, you retreating, and then having to come to your near post, and then having to make the decision. So today in practice, that's what I emulated. I'm like, come forward, like we worked on that. Now I need you to retreat, figure out where you are using your peripheral vision in the goal, go to the near post. Now you have to deal with the slotted ball. So trying to kind of look bigger than just like, here, go to near post, do this. Here, go to near post, do that. Try to make it more game-like, because how do they mess up? They mess up because their movements, like you said, too many movements, not distinct enough. And whether you're getting lost retreating to the goal and now you don't know where you are, like from the lines and stuff, these are all things that factor into not handling a situation properly. So try to create that when you're training a goalkeeper.
Yeah.
I was just going to say this to Duncan right here, because I absolutely love what you said right there, Sask, because I think this is one of the biggest issues, Duncan, and with young goalkeepers out there is that, and obviously at the professional level, that the dangerous space is based on the development of the play 2 or 3 actions before, not the final action. And so many goalkeepers try to think about where the ball is going to be played based on the final action. But by then it's too late, right, Duncan?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things you take into consideration. Like, if there's 3 guys making a run and they're all going to the front post, then obviously that becomes a more dangerous space when there's that many people there. And, like I said, it's a dangerous space is just the threat of a goal in that area. So it's where reading the game comes into it. And obviously every time you jump up a level, it just gets that much quicker and you have to make those decisions and read it that much quicker. But it's a huge thing is just knowing where those spaces are and kind of picking up on it early.
Yep.
And I think the thing is too, is also you have to recognize not only the dangerous spaces are also determined based on the shape of your team too. Like, I think the mistake that a lot of young goalkeepers make in that scenario right there, for instance, is that you had coverage on your near post. You had a supporting player right there. So there's no reason for you to lean in towards that near post right there. All that's going to happen is that's just going to expose the gap on the other side, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, your team, where your defenders are, makes such a big difference as well. You know, if you have a group of people right in the middle of the box and you think, I could come for that, but there's 4 of my defenders there, they should be able to deal with it, and I'll just drop and make the save if they maybe don't get to it. There's so many different things to read in terms of the opposition and your own team.
And it makes say you want to make this most simple save possible. You know, I have one of my players looking at me goes, "Oh my God, it's so obvious now." Yeah, because you know that your defender has got this angle covered. You know, and so it's not that you're cheating, but it's that, you know, it's you're manipulating the game in front of you to make the easiest save possible. So now you know that the attacker really only has this area to shoot into, and whether that's going far post, whatever it is. But now you can kind of, that determines your positioning. If you're covered near a post, or if you know the defender's coming into that space. Now, where's she going to go? She's going to try to bend it far post. She might hit it at me. She might try, you know, every once in a while it goes through the defender's legs and you're all kind of screwed. But, you know, at the same time, you've got it. That's the evolution of the position, period.
Yeah. And Omar, you know, go ahead. Were you about to say something?
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if anybody, we love other podcasts, but Richard Wright, he was on, I think it was Joe Hart's podcast. Not too long ago, and he was talking about one thing that they loved about Ederson was that I think it was his first few months with Man City, and they were on, I think, the U.S. tour, the International Champions Cup, ICC, and there was one ball that got played over the top. He completely misread it, and I think they almost scored from it. They had to scurry back and then make a decision and make a save. And then he said that the exact same ball and the exact same scenario happened literally like 5-10 minutes later, and he did not waver. He did the exact same thing, and then this time it worked out. So I think that's also a conversation we need to have as well, is what happens if you get the decision wrong? And like Sas said, a lot of kids, they kind of fold and they become they overcompensate now. They go, oh crap, I stay on my line. So instead of
the thing I hate the most is that, like, I should have come, let me go. Well, you've already lost the opportunity. So now, and I said it today at practice, actually. I was really pissed off. I don't get very mad. But I was like, that was ridiculous. And I'm like, you came for that cross too late. You just got beat on a header by a 5'2" girl. And I'm like, and I don't know who you're trying to appease right now, but the effort after it was ridiculous. It made it stay on your line. You should have come. You didn't stay on your line, and the ball wouldn't have gone in. But now you're diving. You come late. You're making like an attempt to punch this ball. She gets cuts in front of you, and it's an easy header into the goal where you made the mistake. You didn't come, but stay. Don't make another mistake. Stay and fix, do what you can to fix it. You're not, I'm like, oh, what great effort. I'm like, that was stupid.
Yeah.
I am sorry. I can be blunt sometimes, but they're adults. So I'm like, why would you do that? Like, she would have headed it right into you.
Duncan, are college kids adults, or would you go that far?
Oh yeah, that's a
all right. I'm trying
there.
to be nice, because God forbid
they like to be treated like adults, but
but you know what I mean. I was trying to be nice. I don't get but stuff like that irritates me. Like, don't follow it up. Like, don't follow a mistake up by a mistake.
But I think you just brought up a good point, Saskia, right there in regards to that. And like Michael Sperning over at Union Berlin, who we just had on recently, he talked about don't judge your movement, because the problem is if you start judging your movement, you're in your head. You're not focused on the play at hand, you know. And Duncan, isn't that something, obviously, as the speed of play increases, when you go from the college game to the pro game, you start recognizing, I don't have time to judge this. I just have to go with my instincts.
Yeah, it's where, I mean, it's kind of, you realize when you were younger, all those sessions and all the games you spent like working on those positions and kind of thinking about where you are in terms of the ball and your team and everything. It's like, there comes a point where you can't really be actively thinking about it anymore. You know, you just kind of have to know where the goal is, know markings on the field and everything like that, and just be in the right spots rather than thinking about being in the right spots. Where you just have to
get out of your head.
Yeah, I don't know when that switches. I think it's probably different for everyone, but it's just like you can't be thinking about that because there's so many other things going on where you just have to be in the right spots and then be thinking about kind of that next level of
Yeah, I mean, all that
deal with.
training we do with you, all that training we do is so it becomes second nature. It's not that you're saying to yourself, set or move or analyzing it. It's no, this has to become second nature. You have to realize I didn't come for the cross, I have to drop into the goal. Don't think about it. That should be your normal reaction. And that's what we're trying to coach out of you is, and I have to say that a lot. I'm like, please just trust your instincts, dear. I'm giving you the tools. Now, when we're scrimmaging, trust your instincts. Don't overthink it. Get out of your head. Don't overthink it.
And by the way, I want to bring this up to young goalkeeper coaches out there who are listening to this and getting this note from their coaches all the time. Like, oh, well, he doesn't recognize where the dangerous space is, or like, he can't read the game, yada, yada, or she can't read the game or whatever. If they've been going through cones for the last 6 months, of course they can't. Of course they can't, because you haven't taught them how. So it's really, really important that that your head coach, expresses that to you, and then you recognize how you have to adjust your session design. Because Duncan, obviously the reason that you are able to play at the level that you're at right now is because you were put in scenarios and you were forced on your own to recognize where the danger was. And through trial and error, you started figuring it out. But if it was just cone after cone after cone, well, if it doesn't look like the drills, you're not going to know what to do.
Yeah, and obviously, like, the best place to make those decisions is in a game, but if you can simulate those in training as much as possible, and have a good group of goalies and a good coach to work with who can make it as game realistic as possible and force you to make decisions like when to come out, when to drop back, when to come close to your front post, things like that. It's like you guys were saying, it becomes second nature, and then when you get into those game situations, you can be on that next level of thought where you're thinking about, kind of like where the ball is going to end up rather than where you're going to be. And it just helps you massively in all aspects, just to have that positioning down and not think about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And one thing I want to do right now is, so we're now going to put up, hold on, let me see if I can find it right here. If I have it here. Oh, I do. Hold on. Oh, do I have it? Here we go. Beautiful. Okay. So now this is the maturation of Duncan Turnbull. Now we're in the pro game right here. Now we've been talking about a lot about wide service. Okay. But I want to show another reason of recognizing dangerous space right here. And Duncan, obviously this wasn't that long ago right here, but as we kind of play through this is kind of a mad scramble going on right here. So this is a very difficult situation for you, obviously. You have to, first off, you got a player on that ball. Then you've got to recognize this dangerous space. As this player misses the ball, you got to come out, cover the space, but be disciplined enough to set. And then because you're in a solid position, you're able to make a nice save. By the way, no rebound there. I think that's fantastic. I think a lot of young goalkeepers need to see that. The fact that you didn't give up a spill right there, because sometimes those emotions get into your head and everything like that. You're like, oh my God, I'm playing pro, yada, yada. And then the next thing I know, the ball's in the back of the net because you spilled the ball here, So let's walk right through this. Oh, hold on. Did somebody? Oh no, that was a tick right there. All right, Duncan, can you walk us right through this play right here?
Yeah. So to start, obviously my defender is, we're looking to play here a little bit, and then he gets caught on the ball, just probably 5 yards to the right of the 6-yard box. So, I mean, it's a pretty bad place to lose the ball as far as everyone's concerned, and it puts us in a tough spot. So, to be fair to him, after he loses it here, the guy kind of takes a touch towards goal. He does well to get up and try to recover, which pushes him another touch inside, closer to me. And then I kind of have a peek over my left shoulder and see that my other defender, Nico's kind of coming into the back post. So once he misses this tackle here, I kind of have a decision to make. Like, do I come out and make it into a 1v1? Do I drop off and kind of treat it more as a shot? And then once I see his leg go back to shoot, it kind of makes the decision for me, where I take one step here to get a little bit closer, close down the angle. And then when his foot goes back to shoot here, you just have to get set and deal with it, even though, obviously ideally I'd be right in front of him, just coming out to make a block, but you just kind of have to get set. And like I said, my defender's coming into my left to cover the back post, so it's kind of like we talked about earlier. I'm not cheating towards the front post, but I think the forward's going to see that as well and maybe try to go to the front post there. So it's just stay set and
Yeah, I mean,
react to it.
he doesn't have the angle up for the back post because of your defender.
Yeah. So, I mean, as bad as it was for the defender to lose it, both the center backs there kind of do well to recover and help me out. And then it kind of makes the goal smaller for me. And then it's just up to me to react and make that save there.
The other thing I like that you said is that I like, and it's hard to explain this to kids and try to get them to understand it and not be set in concrete. When he brings his foot back, you take that extra step forward. So where you originally were when he was about to take the shot, now the angle has changed. And so he might have seen you here and seen a little daylight at the near post. You bait him, and now he's cocked and ready to go, and his head, and you've taken that step forward. So now that's gone. And that's a timing thing. That pre-stretch is so important. And, you know, a lot of kids will go set and then let him take the shot. Well, you know, now you're kind of set in cement. You're set too early. You know, take that split second to take that extra step forward, close that space that now has changed the angle for the shooter so much. Like that little bit has changed. Now he just doesn't have the openings he thought he did.
Yeah. By the way, I want to say this is right here is that Omar, I don't think you need to do any play-by-play right there because I think Duncan and Saskia did a very good job
We've got a future
of
together,
painting
Duncan.
that picture right there for radio. They got that radio play-by-play future going.
There we go.
I think
you do the play-by-play, I'll do the color. There we go.
Perfect.
I think a good point for any young kids that are listening is that just because you know where the space is going to be exposed doesn't mean you have to be the person to influence the play. I think a lot of times we see, even with, I think it was Courtois early on in his Madrid career, there were times where he was coming out to influence 1v1s and getting either dinked over the top or split down the middle, where his defender was 2-3 yards in behind the striker, who could have probably influenced it had he given him the opportunity to drop off. So I think that's also a big conversation piece there is, yes, you can influence the space, but as my coach one time told me, he said, Omar, your defenders, they're getting scholarships to play too. It's not just
Absolutely.
you. Yeah, it's not just you. It's not just you doing all this stuff. You need to understand it, that they can take care of you as much as you can take care of them.
Absolutely.
But there needs to be a synergy there. It can't be 70-30. It's got to be 50-50. And I think the best goalkeepers, to Duncan's point earlier, the best goalkeepers, they're the ones who can have those preventative measures, and they can assess those preventative measures in live time. And in that live time, they can make those 1 or 2% differences that can either make them look like a hero or make them kind of get caught in no man's land.
Yeah, because you might get, like Duncan said, he might have said, I have to make the decision, do I come right now? And you'll get a lot of young goalkeepers that as soon as that touch beats that defender, they might come balling towards the ball.
Flying.
Right? Like flying towards the ball. I'm going, which is not the right decision there because the player has the ball on his feet. But if you hold and you make that player take another touch and make that player pause, your defense is getting paid, and they're hopefully on their way back to help you. And if you hold him that 1 second, well, now your defender got into the space and shut off the far post, and now it makes it a simpler situation. Or maybe a defender comes back and tackles him. You don't know. But if you can assess it that way, instead of saying, "Oh, I gotta go, I gotta solve this," that's not always the situation. The situation is maybe you have to delay it a split second, and then your defender will help you solve it.
I mean,
1,000%, Omar.
Yeah, my goalie coach now, he always is, one of his favorite lines is make the striker beat you.
Yes.
So like you said, if you make the wrong decision, if I'd come flying out, that would have made the decision for him, and he would have probably tried to dink me. He had enough time where he could have scored. If I had dropped back, then he had the whole goal to shoot at, because
Right.
I would have had no angle. So it's just by being in that right spot, you force them to beat you, and it's amazing how many times the striker just hits it at you, or
I think I said that
you can
5
make the
times
save.
today.
Yeah,
Literally, I think I said step out and be like, I think I said it, a curse word in there or something like that, but I was like, make them beat you. Step out and be like, all right, what do you got? Like, make them beat you, stand them up. And when we had Michelle Akers on, she said that was the worst thing ever, when I would stand her up and I would come out and stand her up. And now she's like, damn it. She was hoping she had baited me. She had hoped I would run and just go down. That's what she was waiting for. Instead, now make a decision, beat me. You know, let's see
Yeah,
what you
yeah,
got. Be in that space, and they know they have people breathing down their neck, so they're under pressure. You know, don't make the decision for the player. Don't.
By the way, I do want to say one thing, Omar. While you took off right there, and it was just an empty chair right there with the Portsmouth logo right there. It looked like we had just it looked like we had tuned in for a Portsmouth press conference, and we were just waiting for it to begin. And then you sat down, and I just felt like you were about to be like, "Good evening." That's what it felt like. I do want to bring this up as we start wrapping up here. And Duncan, I know it's starting to get late for you over there, and I'm sure you have to wake up early and, you know, be a professional and all that sort of a stuff. But one of the biggest mistakes that I think a lot of young goalkeepers make, and I want you to help out with this right here, is that they think so much about what are their options, as opposed to thinking about what are their options, because their options are going to determine what your options are. You know, so as you've been moving up kind of those levels, is that something that you've really been focusing on? Is like, okay, here's the scenario. I need to know what his options are, what this player on the ball's options are, and then that's going to determine what I do.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that last one where there's certain times where you can see my one center back did well to kind of come in behind me and kind of cover my back post. So then you know that, while maybe, he could have curled it around him, or it would have taken something special kind of to get by him. So it makes my goal a little bit smaller. And I know that, all right, that kind of far off to the back post isn't really an option. So now I just have to deal with this space. And then same before, you know, when someone comes in for a tackle, it cuts off that side because obviously there's, you know, legs blocking that way. So it's just kind of always looking at, like you said, what their options are. And if the back post is the only place they can shoot, then you can kind of, not really, you never want to lean and kind of not be able to move, but you can anticipate that that's where the ball might go.
And that's like kids out there, that's like a split second anticipation. That's not like way ahead of time.
Yeah, it's more just knowing that, all right,
it's the
chances
energy.
are the ball's going that way. The better the strikers are, the more they can surprise you and pull a ball back away you're not expecting it. So that's why, you know, you always have to be set, but yeah, no, it's important just to kind of know what the striker can do, and then you just quickly, obviously, in your head, just come up with all your solutions to the things they can do, and that helps you keep the ball out.
I made a comment today. One of my keepers bit like against a incredible forward that always gets my keepers to bite, but bit and dove or like gave up early, like dove one way early. She made the save, but I came out to her, I was like, you didn't make the save. She mishit the ball. And I was like, and it hit you in the leg because you were absolutely went too early, going the wrong way, and she was sliding it the other direction by her feet. She mishit the ball. And I was just like, and I'm not a jerk out there, you guys, but you know,
I'm starting to think you are.
I'm not, but I didn't want people to pat her on the back. She dove to the left. Yourself. She dove to the left like a half an hour early. Like,
I think I'm gonna to this point, Saskia, I think we can all agree, and I think we've all had.
I'm really nice, I swear.
Sure. But I think we can all agree though that like the best possible lessons ever in a game are the times where you're indecisive and you don't get scored on. And I remember with the Galaxy Academy, I probably had 4 goals that happened on me led from my indecisiveness that led to a goal, but we didn't lose the game. So it was one of those situations where the goalkeeper coach looked at me kind of like, you know, that was your fault, but we didn't lose. So it's a learning lesson. So as best you can, just make sure if you do make mistakes, your team still wins. But at the same time, we
were just doing a drill, thank God. But I was just like, you didn't save that ball. Like,
Duncan right here is just like you say, so happy that Saskia's not the goalkeeper coach at Portsmouth.
I'm like
right
the
now.
nicest person in the world, I swear to God. And I actually treat my goalkeepers with respect and nicely. But sometimes I'll be like, you didn't save the ball. She hit you with the ball. Like, there's like, please understand the difference. Like, because the players on the side will be like, great save. And I'll be like, what are you talking about? She was diving the wrong direction, and Mia
kept it out.
Mia shaped the ball. Whatever. But she kept it out of the net. You're right.
You know, guys, as we're kind of wrapping up here, Duncan, the last thing I kind of want to bring up with you is, you know, the issue with youth goalkeepers a lot of times, and the reason that they get, for instance, like that last play right there we saw where they panic and they make a decision to scramble at something rather than judging what are the options that player has? Where's the dangerous area? And let me be disciplined and make a simple adjustment for
I swear
that.
to God, Mike, you must have so much time when you're in goal, like to go through all these things in your head.
They happen fast. Like you're saying, it's a split second, right? Your brain has to be, not all of us are looking at the airplane wings, you know, so, and can just react. We're all that, you know, not everyone's a world-class athlete you are. We have to plan it all out ahead of time. But it's because of the coaches. You know, how many times at the youth level have you seen Duncan, you know, Saskia or Omar, you know, coaches yelling out and telling the goalkeeper what to do in this situation? All that does for the young goalkeeper coaches out there, or for the head coaches out there, is freak out that goalkeeper, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing worse than when you've made the decision in your head to not come for a ball, and then everyone starts yelling at you to come for the ball.
Keeper.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously, I mean, sometimes you make the wrong decision and you should have been out there, but it's like I was saying before, once you make that decision, I've always been a big proponent of just you stick with it and you deal with the results of that rather than try to fix it and make another mistake. So yeah, I mean, it's especially with younger goalies, you know, like high school, even like middle school, younger, when you learn to make those decisions earlier, and like Omar was saying, like you make a few mistakes and hopefully they don't lead to goals, but you know, sometimes they do. But those mistakes are the biggest learning moments where you know, because when you do it properly, it's, you know, it's a great feeling. But I remember all the mistakes I made more than I remember, you know, the good things I did. So you remember those things, you learn from them, especially when you're younger, and it kind of builds that, like we were talking about positioning, you just subconsciously, you just know the right thing to do. And you're not actively thinking about it anymore. You're just making the right decisions and doing the right things.
I would tell any coach out there, by the time you tell the keeper what to do, it's too late. They've made a decision far before you. Yeah, and even that time it takes to get that comment out of your mouth, it's too late. Same with field players. Like, you know, if the keeper hasn't come, then clear the ball. Like, don't call keeper for the keeper. I hate that. I'm just like. I'm like, but also you might not, as far as field players, you might not see what the goalkeeper sees, you know, to back the goalkeeper up. You see this, the keeper sees the whole field. The keeper might not be calling it because you might not realize that there's somebody barreling in on you over here and you're going, keeper, come get the ball, and the keeper can't. Like, you don't know. And sometimes it's a mistake. Just do your job, but don't call keeper for a keeper. Don't tell them to do anything.
By the way, guys, if you're looking for to learn all about mistakes and how to deal with your mistakes, I think Omar's got a 3-hour Pro GK podcast on making mistakes. that he put up.
I do. It's not 3 hours. It's not that many stories, but yeah, it's about it's about, like, I mean, I think that's what I did. I think what it is, I think the best opportunities for you to think about preventative measures in terms of you made a mistake and how can you recover from that is prior to this, like, situation ever happening. Like, you want to have a plan in place that if stuff hits the fan, you know exactly what to do and what steps you need to take in those, like, brief moments before the game gets back into action. So I think it's very, very important. A lot of times people, and myself included, where I was too lazy to have like a game plan or really like reflect on it. And then when it happened in the game, I was just like, oh no, here we go again. And then just kind of had to live in that versus like, okay, let me sit down. What are the things that are happening to me mentally, physically in those moments? How can I have a plan to reverse that and then have it work in my favor? You know what I mean? So I think that's important for anybody listening, and the podcast definitely touches on all tips and tricks for all that.
Yeah. Well, speaking of mistakes, I made the mistake of not eating baklava before the podcast, so I'm going to go end up getting some baklava right now. So that's where my mind's going. So I'm already ahead of the play, unfortunately. As we're starting to wrap up right here, Duncan. First off, congratulations, man! So awesome of the fact that you're at the club that you supported, your entire life. You're living by your grandparents, and the fact that how well you guys are doing. I mean, it's looking like you guys have a strong chance of getting promoted. I mean, my gosh, man! I mean, what a dream come true. Honestly, just the beginning of your professional career. If anybody out there wants to kind of follow this kind of journey of yours, like, where's the best place for them to follow you?
Yeah, my Instagram is dturn999. And then I know Big Cat GK posts stuff all the time. Neil Thompson runs that. He's been working with him forever. So follow me, follow him on Instagram. buy some gloves, go to one of their camps. So, that's what I did growing up. And, worked out for me. So there's a lot of good goalies there now, and a lot of good goalies have come through there. So yeah, I'd say my Instagram, Big Cat GK are the kind of the two that, include me the most.
Nice. Awesome. And obviously, guys, you can follow Omar Zeenni at a goalkeeper who never makes mistakes on Instagram. At Pro GK Academy _ you can follow Saskia Webber at Saskia_Webber. Contact at inside the 18. That's the number 18media.com. If you have a guest suggestion or a topic suggestion, at Goalkeeper Podcast on all social media platforms. And you can follow me as well at Michael Magid, Magid. That's all the time on Inside the 18, and we are out. Later, guys.
Bye, guys.